How significant is the Janai Broom injury, and what are the prospects for this Auburn team without him? We'll talk about that right here on this edition of the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub, I Joe, Be Will, by G. You are now listening to
Weekend Tailgate, brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR to get 15% off your weights and $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Golden says you guys have been coming through and getting a lot of weights. I guess hashtag get your weight up has been effective because you guys are getting it up with Golden's Cast Iron. Again, code get your weight up for 15% off those weights. Keep buying, guys. We need you guys to fall through and support them as they support us. You can become a member of the War Report by hitting that join button. $5.99 a month will get you there. These are like micro sponsorships of our channel. If you like what we do, you can help keep that work going by hitting that join button. Ike is going to be traveling around the Southeast covering Auburn basketball away games. So you can keep him fed and happy by joining as a member. You can also give the gift to the War Report by hitting that gifted membership button. If you interact with our channel at a high level, but you haven't made a decision to become a member of the Green Name Gang, you might be on the receiving end of one of these memberships. So check your email. YouTube chooses these at randoms. Also, we want to thank our friends at Vintage 2298, the restaurant and butcher shop. If you're in the Auburn area and you're looking for some sweet eats, Vintage has you covered. I got Chef Randall Baldwin is over there serving up something nice for you guys in this cold weather. So Vintage is keeping you guys warm. Again, visit them at 2298 East University Drive in Auburn, Alabama. And last but certainly not least, our friends at Manscaped. Visit manscaped.com and use code REPORT, joining the over 11 million men worldwide that trust Manscaped with their personal grooming and care. Whether it's the boys downstairs or whatever you got going on the face, the Manscaped has you covered to help keep your personal grooming at a high level. We love Manscaped for sponsoring the War Report.
Yes, indeed. Thank you for everybody who is out there continuing to share the good word of the War Report. Make sure you share this video with somebody as we get into the conversation. Auburn basketball survives in Columbia, South Carolina. It wasn't pretty. It was not pretty by any means, but they got the win. Of course, the big news coming out of that is Janai Broom's injury. We're going to talk about Janai Broom, but before we get into that specifically, what are your thoughts on just how that game went down yesterday?
Look, if you're going to win a championship, you got to win games like this, right? Road wins in the SEC should not be taken for granted. Nothing's a given, right? Auburn, you guys, we've talked about this, Ike, you and I offline. Auburn's going to lose some basketball games this year.
For sure.
It's which basketball games are they going to lose? Whenever you go out and you get a road win in the conference, that's a plus. This is as good a win as any. You were tested in this game, right? And as the team sitting on that number one perch, everybody's coming for your crown every single week. So number ones don't last very long. But as Auburn navigates through this schedule, guys, I think they're proving that they're the best team in the country. I was talking with my good friend Doug Amos over at ESPN 106, and he asked simply, he said, is this the best team in the country without Janai Broom? I said, well, obviously they're not the best team in the country without Janai Broom, but they're good enough to win without him. And that is what I love about this team. The way they've constructed this roster with the outside, they have the outside shooting. When they're hot, they can run you off the court quick. You got guys like Cheney Johnson, Dylan Cardwell has brought his game along. Not much of a scorer, but he alters a lot of shots at the rim. That doesn't show up in the stat sheet, but he is a hard guy to shoot over when he's down in the paint. So this is still a really good team. I think it's good enough to get by the next few weeks, and they'll find ways to win. Burgermaster has been cooking up a lot of great stuff there from a play standpoint. Denver has looked good at the point. Ja'Kai Howard is coming along, man. I don't even think they peaked yet. quite honestly. So it's interesting. But I mean, that's my thoughts on yesterday's win. I thought it was just a good win as any as they're going to have this year. And, to go on the road and pull that out with your best player getting hurt certainly was a feat for Bruce Pearl and the squad.
Yeah, I remember when Bruce Pearl just got to Auburn and he was building
your mic is weird all of a sudden. CZ.
Oh yeah,
like,
check your mic.
It's like your computer mic.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. Tough win for Auburn there because they were doing what they needed to do without Janai Broom.
Yeah,
but it was a struggle with him, right? Let's be clear. They were struggling in that game. They were behind in that game.
3-for-11, right? When he went out. Yeah.
So this team's got to figure out, I think, not just how to win without Janai Broom, but how to be consistent on the glass, because that was the big thing I think that was hindering them early in the game, is they just were getting beat on the offensive boards. And South Carolina was getting a bunch of second chance opportunities. Again, that's with Janai Broom in the game. So they got to figure out how to improve their ability to keep teams off of the offensive glass. Caesar, let's see if we're good on your mic.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I just remember when Bruce Pearl first got to Auburn, building his program, and teams like Kentucky, teams that were the top of the SEC would come into town. And I remember the excitement in the building and how it seems like Auburn played its best game of the season against Kentucky, would fall short in those games, but you can tell they got up for that game and gave Kentucky and the Tennessees of the world their best shot. That's kind of what it's going to be like for Auburn this year, because teams going into a conference play have pretty much crowned Auburn one of the best, if not the best team in college basketball. So teams are gunning for teams that have that type of hype, excitement around their program. They want to be able to get that impressive win on their resume. The SEC has the ability, if the tournament started today, could put 12 to 13 teams in the tournament.
Yeah,
that's insane. So that tells me there's a lot of competition in this league, and there are a lot of teams that can get you on any given day. And for Auburn to roll in with a number 2, probably number 1, as soon as the AP poll rolls out for this week, teams are going to want to be that team that knocks off the number 1 team in the country. So you're going to have games like this, especially on the road. And one of the things I like about what Bruce Pearl is doing is that he has constructed this team with depth. Everyone's coming onto this team understands that you're going to play, but you're not going to play a lot of minutes that you will probably play somewhere else, right? You get to play at a high level, but it's reduced minutes. And he's doing that because of moments like this, when a big time player goes down, the next man up, you have enough depth. And this team has proven that they can beat you in a number of ways. And that comes into play in games like this. Auburn was struggling in the inside. Obviously, the game plan for South Carolina was to attack the paint, get the bigs in foul trouble. And that plan was working for the most part, because prior to his injury, Janai Broom was largely ineffective. He was kind of struggling to get his shot going. And it seems like he was getting ready to get into the flow of the game until his injury occurred. Yeah. But you had guys beginning to shoot from the outside, hit shots from deep. And so it was seeing this team find a way to win is what's amazing about this team. Again, I think that y'all said it on the post game. Last year, this team probably loses because you don't have that outside shot that last year that you have this year. So this team has a number of ways to beat you. And Auburn had to go deep into his bag yesterday and find a way to win.
Yeah, I think you made a good point about Auburn being everybody's resume builder now. Like, there are not a lot of teams out there that can do anything for Auburn at this point. I mean, how they constructed their non-conference schedule. They ran the gauntlet already. So if you're Auburn, you're just trying not to have any bad losses at this point. But, what do they have left to prove in terms of who they can beat? And I know that sounds crazy at the beginning of the SEC schedule, but that's how good that non-conference schedule was.
Yeah, I think the only thing that you got to worry about is true road games, right? So they've won 2 of them, but they haven't beat anybody quality on a true road game. The only true road game that they've had this season versus a quality opponent they lost, which was Duke. So they got to go into somebody's building and get a win versus a team that people consider to have a pulse. And winning closely against a Texas and versus a South Carolina doesn't do much to bolster that. But
Yeah,
I
but
think
the Auburn
regardless,
neutral
this team
site
is still the
games,
best in the
though.
country.
I mean, ain't no road games in the tournament, though.
But here's the
y'all
It's not,
thing.
but if
But here's
you're
the
going to be the best
thing.
team in the country, you got to win that kind of stuff. Go
Bro,
ahead.
that's right. But see, the point is, Mike, is you have other teams gunning to be that top program or to be the top seed. You got some teams in our conference gunning for that. Like Alabama, you still got to go on the road and play them. And I think we go on the road to play Florida, right?
No, Florida's at home this year.
No, Florida's at home. So
Yeah.
there's some teams that on the road you're going to have to show that, hey, we can beat a quality SEC opponent on the road, because that can hurt. It doesn't necessarily, you don't need it to move up the ranks, Mike, but you got a lot to lose is one of those things.
Yeah. Like, honestly, again, this and that goes in line with my point, which is if you're Auburn, you're not. There's not much left to prove. It's just you don't want to lose any bad games. And say what you want. Look, Florida's good. They've got a solid squad.
Yeah.
A lot of people forgot that they were the team on the other side of the court in that SEC tournament final game against Auburn. But getting run off the court like that it certainly hurt them, because they only had 3 quad 1 games coming into this. Now they were 3-0 in those games. If you're Auburn, you went 6-1 in quad 1 games through the non-con, which is, again, was crazy. And mostly a lot of neutral site games where you're away from home. I think that's where I'm focused at, is you won away from Neville. And that's where this team, I think, at points over the last few years, it was like, yes, they can get big wins, but it felt like a lot of those big wins came in Neville. And being able to win away from Neville, I see those neutral site games the same way you guys are talking about these road games. And I think they proved that already. Now, you can't go out and drop all your road games. I'm with you guys. It's still important to go on the road and beat somebody with a pulse.
Kentucky, that was a team I was thinking of.
Yeah, but yeah, like for them, I think they've proven that they can do that already this year, and they've done it multiple times. And it's going to be more kind of just like hold on to that spot. Make sure you hold on to that number 1 seed spot, because the committee has shown us they give 0 F's, guys, about what happens in that SEC tournament, unless you are a non-qualifier and you win it. I have not seen a good run in that SEC tournament do anything for a team that's on the bubble in the last few years. I haven't. If you're Auburn, right, like if you're either a number 1 seed or you're not going into that tournament, which is why I think, continue to take care of home, win your fair share on the road, and they should be a slam dunk. Right now, they're a 1-loss team. If they finish a 4 or 5-loss team, I don't know how you knock them off that 1 seed spot, 2 at worst.
Especially if you got Janai back and you're playing and you're playing well. Yeah, like you're going to get the benefit of the doubt.
I wonder how they will view any loss that happens in his absence. Right.
I guess it depends on how they look when he returns, right? If they're just like he gets back and they're back to greasing teams up and they were struggling in his absence, I think they say to themselves, that was the reason for that. Like if they had Janai Broom, that'd have been a different game. But let's talk about the next couple of games and what it might look like with Janai Broom. Reports out of Auburn are that it's not going to require any surgery, but the timetable is not set for that. So let's just assume for the rest of January, at bare minimum, Auburn is without Janai Broom. That means that you've got at home versus Mississippi State coming up Tuesday. You're going on the road to Georgia. You get Tennessee at home, and then you go on the road to LSU. That's the next 4 games. And after that, let's just say 5 games, because February 1st we'll go to Ole Miss. So in the next 5 games, what do you feel like Auburn can do over those next 5 games minus Janai Broom? Mississippi State at home, on the road versus Georgia, home versus Tennessee, road versus LSU, and Ole Miss.
Oof, man, that's tough.
Yeah, of those games, Georgia is the only team not ranked in the top 25.
But they're still good.
And they're on the road for that one.
I hate saying it, but the Broken Uglies look tough right now.
They all right.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, but that's still a game I would be concerned about.
On the road, I can be concerned about that. But of those 5 teams, they are probably like 4 on that list for me as far as tough teams. And Georgia's not even ranked, and I think that's going to be a tougher game.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I see the optimism in our chat. People going 3-2, 4-1. Auburn can easily be 2-3 over the next 5 games.
Yeah, it's oof, man. You've got some.
Three of those 5 will be on the road. You'll be on the road at Georgia, LSU, and Ole Miss. You'll have Mississippi State and Tennessee at home. Arguably the 2 best teams. You get them at home, but I mean, ranking wise, it is the 2 best teams you get at home. But
Yeah.
how are y'all feeling about minus Janai Broom? Next 5 games is kind of where most people feel like it's going to be for him, out for a couple of weeks with that injury. How you feeling about it?
Who's going to be the guy to step up, right? Like, to me, without Chaney Johnson becomes super important.
Yeah, Chaney probably moves into the starting lineup.
I think so.
Janai Broom.
I think so. He in a way, because Janai added the 3-point game shot to his game. Chaney can shoot the 3. He can hit from the outside. He can rebound at a high level, right? Like, yeah, he can drive the basketball, and he can defend with the best of them. He's blocking shots down there just like Janai is. So if he can fill some of that gap, it comes down to, what do you get out of Tahad at Denver, right? Because if those guys heat up, I think they can win all of these games. They can have a chance to win all of these games. So what do I see? I think they win more than they lose over that stretch.
So at worst, you're saying 3-2 in that stretch. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think they figure it out. Without Janai, if we're talking strictly without Janai, I feel like they can piece something together. And I just wouldn't, the way this year has been going and the way this team is playing, it just seems like whenever they need it, somebody steps up. Miles Kelly said this early in the season. He came to a post-game presser. I sat there, I listened to him, and he said, any night, you just never know who's the guy who go for 20 to 30 points. It's not an exact quote, but that's paraphrasing what he said. Anybody we got like 6 or 7 guys that can step up and be that dude on any given night. But I really think that it's Tahad, man. Through the non-con, what we saw was when the lights were the brightest, he was just draining buckets. Like, this kid was made for the spotlight, and the spotlight's going to be on him over these next 5 games. So now's a great time to keep that streak going. I think 3-2 at worst. I think it's a 1-loss stretch at best. You're going to drop one. You're going to drop one.
Sure.
I think Tennessee's got cracks. I think that they have some cracks in the foundation that Auburn can exploit. But I mean, sneaky games like that LSU game, and I don't know, fellas. This you're going to be tested over this stretch, and this is why I think that the SEC is the best basketball conference this year. Right? And quite honestly, I don't think it's particularly close.
Yeah, I'm going to say they go 3-2 over the next few games. Worst case, I got them going 2-3.
Who you got them losing to?
So now,
who you got them losing to, though?
I have them. See, I got to name my losses.
I was gonna go back and name mine. I was like, I didn't do it, but I'll go back and do it.
I said before the SEC season started, before Janai Broom went down, I thought that Georgia game was one to be on the lookout for. I just felt like they were going to be really hyped up for the home game versus Mississippi State, and then really focused in on that potentially at the time number 1 versus number 2 matchup, which is not going to look like it's going to be that at the time with Tennessee. And Georgia was going to be kind of that game where they get on the road. It's another early tip off there in Georgia, and they were going to end up losing to a really physical Georgia team. That was one I had already circled before Janai Broom went down. It's even more a game where I think Auburn can lose now without Janai Broom because of the physicality that Georgia presents on the interior.
I'm gonna go with that one because that's my concern with Auburn right now is rebounding.
Now for me, Mississippi State is the other game where I feel like you potentially don't have an additional big body, like unless Jaheim Hudson can really step up and bring something on the defensive end. I don't think you need Jaheim a lot on offense. You need him on rebounds and defense. And you're going to need that versus a team like Mississippi State that really wants to turn this into a bar fight. So those will be the two games right now that I'm looking like Tennessee's going to be physical. They're not as dominant on the interior, and it's going to be a home game, and I expect Auburn to be able to tee off. If Tennessee shoots anything like they have recently on the road, Auburn still wins that game. LSU, I just don't think is better than Auburn, and Ole Miss, I ain't worried about them.
So. And I don't like catching Mississippi State off of a loss either. Like this is a team that's looking to bounce back big. And what we've seen so far is we've seen good teams lose a game to a good team and then turn around and beat another good team. Kentucky did that. Florida has done it. So again, this is a great opportunity for Mississippi State to bounce back after dropping a game at home to Kentucky. So that game worries me, given the fact that Auburn's lineup is going to be different going into that matchup. I would have really liked to have had Janai going up. I mean, obviously against any team, but especially a Mississippi State team that likes to be physical in the paint. Though Georgia, that game worries me. That, like, to your point, Ike, that's a road game that worries me. I think Auburn can beat an Ole Miss team because I still think they're still trying to figure some things out, even though they're playing much better in year two. And I think Auburn will have begin to figure some things out as well. I just think that what they can do over the course of these next 4 or 5 games, the next 2 or 3 weeks, is obviously when it comes to replacing Janai's production. I mean, obviously Chaney Johnson slides into the lineup and fills in that role, but who replaces Chaney Johnson's production? And that's where I look at guys like a Janai Howard. Like, now is your time, buddy. Now is your time.
Listen, Janai Howard has been itching for more playing time.
This is it.
He'll get into that rotation a little bit more now. Like, he's not big, so he's not going to necessarily be playing at 4. They'll probably have to play a little bit of Jaheim Hudson, a little bit of Chris Moore. But Janai Howard will have to get into that mix a little bit more so that they can play him, so they can figure out maybe some small ball lineups. This is going to test the ability of this team coaching staff to pivot play styles, because right now they've been playing through Janai Broom, right? Whether it's him scoring or him assisting, they've been playing through him. Who are they going to play through offensively? Because, I mean, yes, the flex offense works off of motions and cuts and blah, blah, blah. But when it comes down to, even when you came back out in the second half and you ran that the motion that they used to run last year for CBM in the tournament last year, where he would come off of that orbit cut around and then they dive down. They ran that for Miles Kelly. He got the easy layup. Janai was always the trigger man on that. He's at the high post. They're running that motion around him and they dump it down. Who are they going to run sets like that for, to try? Who demands the double teams? Who makes teams have to play you a little bit differently? That's the question I'm going to have to ask. Who's going to be the guy that demands the double team for Auburn now?
You make a good point about Janai Howard. He's been wanting to play more, we know. And that's a tough prospect on this team where they rotate a ton of guys. So Janai is the only one we've seen that's consistently played like 33 plus minutes.
Right.
They're not taking him off the court. So whatever Bruce says about rotations and stuff, it has not applied to Janai so far this year.
Yeah.
And when they've needed a tough bucket or they need to get control of the game or stop a run from the other team, Janai's been the guy for the most part that you could just feed him the ball and watch him do it. But the variety of ways in which he can hit a shot. Ike, what game was that where we were talking about the step back that he hit? Texas. He got teed up right up. Yeah, he got teed up right after he hit it.
Yeah.
But I mean, guys, that was insanely crazy, right? Like, Janai Broom, like, almost crossed the dude up and just stepped back and hit a shot in his face.
Yeah.
Right. On like a deep mid kind of range jumper.
Yep.
So when you take that out of the equation in tight games, we can't. I know I said I think this team is good enough to win without him, but it's the timing of the big play when you need it in tight games that worries me about missing Janai. And where do they go? What do they draw up, right, in those moments without him? Because he stretches the floor. He creates mismatches for other guys. I just wonder how teams will respect whoever they plug in, however they decide to do it. Like, Janai Broom is a problem from any place on the court defensively, except for that Steph Curry, like, from Opelika range. It's the only place he doesn't hit a shot from.
Yeah.
I seen him do a couple of those in practice too. So I don't know, man. The energy around this team, I watched them practice late last week. I was up there before the women played their game, and Auburn was practicing. And man, guys, everybody just looks sound. They look focused. They're having fun. They enjoy being around each other. And when Bruce is coaching, they this is really hard to explain, but these guys look like they're taking the coaching. Yeah. Everybody just is hyper dialed in to what Bruce Pearl is dishing out right now. And it's crazy to watch. And I think that has a lot to do with the product on the court. He's got a lot of guys who have just bought in to what they want to do this year. And I'll stop with this. NIL, it has afforded us the opportunity to be able to see a team like this. Where guys are no longer just running to the NBA or to these development leagues that have, offer where they're just offering money.
Right.
Now you can get development league money at Auburn.
Right.
And you have a chance to return a senior-laden team. That team that beat Jabari and Walker, that Miami team, that was a senior team that beat them. Yeah. That team was full of seniors. Just kind of fundamentally sound basketball guys who were savvy and had been around for a while. And that's what you got this year, in part because Bruce can go to the D2 level and find guys like Janai Johnson and say, you know what, you can play basketball and everybody overlooked you. But if you're willing to work, I got a role for you. And not only did he find him a role, guys, Janai Johnson is a star.
Definitely has that potential. Star. I need to see him do it a little bit more consistently.
Sure. But, I mean, with the minutes he's been given, though, Janai Johnson is a star.
I'm impressed with how he took old dude off the dribbling and just yammed it. Just it's there.
That's what I'm saying. He flashes that, but then he has games like Texas where I'm like, yo, what is this?
Yeah.
So I need him to be a little bit more consistent. But here, the guy that I'm expecting is the guy, Mike G, that you said is the most important player on this team.
All right.
I think they figure out a way to play through Chad Baker-Mazara on the offensive end because he's such a good passer, and he pretty much is a bucket on whoever he wants to score on. I think if they can run offense through Chad, because Chad is a 3-level type of scorer, then you fundamentally change how this team is going to be, even when you get Janai back into that lineup. I think Janai Johnson is going to be the guy that's going to step up and take a lot of that pressure off of this team. Chad Baker-Mazara is going to be that guy for them.
Yeah, here's where you're wrong. You're not wrong. Chad Baker is there. This guy he's grown up and he's doing a lot of things on the. Quietly watch his game.
He's doing everything.
Oh my God!
As much as Janai Broom does everything, the only thing he does not do, I think, as well as Janai Broom, is block shots, and that's because Janai Broom's 6'10", Chad's 6'7". Yeah. But I think Chad is going to be the guy, man. He's going to be called on to step up and do more for this team and probably play more minutes. So hopefully he's getting his win because he might be in the 30-minute zone coming up here.
That's a fact.
He's usually guarding. He usually has one of the tougher assignments on the defensive side too. So get ready.
Another one of those guys that does a lot of things that don't show up on the stat sheet, right?
Yeah.
And Chad Baker he's good. I like, there was a moment in practice on Friday. I think it's okay to talk about this. Where Bruce Pearl was kind of coaching Ja'Kai Howard on the side, right? One thing I like about Bruce is he obviously you got to handle your business, but Bruce is he's not trying to change who you are, right? He lets these kids be themselves. And Chad, he's an emotional guy, right?
Yeah.
He's an emotional guy. If you take that away from him, he can't. I personally don't think he plays with that same edge. You just have to figure out how to manage it, and that's what makes him dangerous. So if you can manage that, he's dangerous. I've seen him. It's almost like I've seen some interactions he's had with the refs as well too. In some of these games, the refs I feel like are starting to understand him. like, I think that he's becoming less of the villain with some of these refs. And again, that's completely anecdotal. It's just what I've noticed when I've seen, his interactions. A lot of times I'm at the basketball games, but when I've had a chance to watch on TV and they have the camera on him after a foul or something, he's kind of explaining to the ref, like, yo, he's holding me, or like, here's what's going on here. And after one of those plays, the ref called it next play. So he's learning how to communicate, I think, and be in that role. And it's a good thing. It's only a good thing for Auburn. In the absence of a Janai Broom, stars can be born. Guys have a chance to step up, and then you have a chance to figure out that you have even more depth than maybe you thought you had.
Yeah.
Right. It's how guys like Chris Moore and Jalen Williams and those guys came along, was they were given an opportunity to step in and they just balled out. And then when the other guys came back, it was like, all right, well, we just got a bunch of dudes now.
Right.
Yeah, so that will be the scary part. That's what other teams are hoping does not happen, is that Auburn figures out a really good way to beat teams without Janai Broom.
Listen,
right? If they figure that
Auburn
out,
was good yesterday without Janai Broom. Like, I mean, again, we said this before. They were losing that game before the injury. Came back and held them without a bucket for the last 5.5 minutes of that game to win.
It was a tight game. Yeah.
Again, it's not as if Auburn is a terrible basketball team. They're just not as dominant, especially on the interior, but they just had to find different ways. Shout out to guys like Tahad Pettiford, who for a second game in a row steps up to the free throw line, hits clutch free throws to ice a game for Auburn.
Facts.
Shout out to guys like Miles Kelly, who has been a number, like, I think people forget Miles Kelly was that dude at Georgia Tech last year. He wasn't just some random guy they picked up in the transfer portal. Maybe he'll be. Miles Kelly was the leading scorer on a Georgia Tech team that played in what people consider to be traditionally one of the best conferences in basketball, and was scorching teams like Duke and North Carolina when he was playing for them last year. Miles Kelly can be a guy.
He's not some random clown. He's a notarized notary republic. This man is out here notarizing things on the court.
Miles Kelly, like, listen, if Miles Kelly, like, if he starts finishing more at the basket, because he can get to the basket.
Yeah.
He starts finishing at the basket, he's unstoppable, because we know what he can do behind the 3-point line.
Right.
But the way he drives to the basket, he starts finishing a few of those. Yeah, he can definitely become a guy.
And again, that's not something that's foreign to him. He did that last year. Yeah. Well, for a couple of years at Georgia Tech. If they say, all right, we're going to run this through our big wings and turn this into a CBM Miles Kelly team now, that changes the scouting report of how you're going to figure out how to beat Auburn. Like, they've got guys that they can go and say, all right, we're going to play a different kind of basketball now. Instead of playing inside out, we're going to play more of the 5-out basketball, and maybe we're going to become more of that pick and roll team of old, because we've got some good rim runners in Chaney Johnson and Dylan Cardwell, right? Like, I don't know what it's going to be. I just know that this team has the ability to pivot like that, because they have guys that can be that guy. They just haven't been asked to do that. So
one of the things that I kind of want to point out statistically about this one, Auburn in top 5 in the nation in points per game. They probably dropped off that average just a tiny bit after Saturday. But when you look at the box, right, like they took less shots than we've seen them take in this one as well too, right? Like, and they still shot 46% from the field, which is respectable, right? Yeah. Like, I mean, 46% from the field is still good. So they were hitting shots. The other thing I noted was the way they were calling this game. There were only 28 free throws shot in this game between both teams.
Yeah,
Auburn had 12. South Carolina shot 16 free throws, right? And Auburn only went 6 of 12 from the free throw line. So them two that Tahad hit down the stretch you were talking about, Ike, they were big.
No, huge.
Yeah. Those are huge free throws.
It's a 1-point game when he goes to take those, and it makes it to where the last 4 seconds it's a more difficult proposition for South Carolina to get a quality shot.
Them crazy. Yeah. So there were interesting, but like you said, they finished the game on a 5 minute and 18 second scoring drought. South Carolina did.
Right.
0 for 6 down the stretch. That couldn't hit a bucket. And so defense is always where they've made their money, Auburn basketball, right? Under Bruce Pearl. Great defensive squads that have not always had the capacity to score consistently in the mid 80s like you see from a lot of teams. But this is why I think Bama's overrated. Like, yeah, they can score, but defensively they give up way too much, if you ask me. In critical moments, eventually that's going to catch up to them. And Auburn, they can do it on both sides. If they can win those high scoring games, or they can win a grinded out low scoring game like what we saw. But still, they were still, even though it was a low scoring game, it wasn't because they were just missing a bunch of shots. They were 46% from the field.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right. Like I said, Janai had a tough game, which hurt their averages, because I think he's averaging better than 50% on the season, isn't he, Ike? From the field? Yeah. I think coming into that game, Janai Broom was averaging 59. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't juice the dude up to 54% from the field. So his 3 of 11 definitely hurt Auburn's average. Sure. In this one. But yeah, like I said, you fill those shots, and he's taking very high percent. He's hitting tough buckets, but he's taking a lot of high percentage shots in the paint.
Auburn was very efficient, especially in the first half. Like, they were shooting well. It was just that Colin Murray Boyles just was going insane in that game. Yeah. Like
and you're gonna get the best from whoever is gonna be that guy. You're gonna get one of those games from everybody
from Texas on the last one. Holy crap! Yeah, it's just,
like they just went off, and like their point production is what's making this game tight.
Do you know what that reminds me of, fellas? You remember there was a stretch where it felt like every time Auburn football played somebody, like whoever the other team's best receiver is had like a career day.
Yeah. We backup quarterbers coming in looking like Joe.
The backup quarterback, like he just steps in and just.
That's what it feels like right now with Auburn basketball, except for they're winning the games.
Yeah.
But it just feels like some dude is having a career night every time they take the court.
Yeah. All right. Well, hopefully Auburn can survive this point right now in the season without Janai Broom, and hopefully his return will not be too far off. We will keep you guys updated as we hear things about that. But we're going to take a quick break and be back with you all with the second half and get into your comments here right on the weekend tailgates.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Weekend Tailgate brought to you by our friends at Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldenscastiron.com/WR and use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights, and code TWR for $65 off fire pits and Kamado grills. Guys, Golden's is telling us you guys are killing the weights right now, and I love that the War Report community is living their healthiest life thanks to Golden's Cast Iron. Please continue to go through. Make sure you visit this URL. It's really important that you guys use the URL here. Just slap that WR on the end of that website address, and make sure you use these codes. Make sure you're maximizing your discounts, and make sure they know that you came from the War Report. You guys know the deal. Join as a member. Hit that join button. Join the greatest online community for Auburn anywhere. We're serving up lots of great stuff for you guys behind the paywall. So as you guys join as a member, it helps us continue to be able to produce that content for you. I want to thank our friends over at Los Amigos Mexican Restaurant. Visit them at 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. They're serving up some sweet eats as well. We went live from Los Amigos about a month month ago. And with my guy Trip Behringer from Sports Visions Radio and Georgia Alabama Sports Live. Los Amigos, great partners in the community as well. Great place to watch an Auburn basketball game. So if you want to get some good Mexican food and watch the game on big screen TV, Los Amigos has you covered. Always got to mention that they got 100 on their health score, so it's a clean place to eat as well too. That's very important these days. I want to thank our friends over at the Rogue Shop. If you're they might give you the urge to head to Los Amigos after the Rogue Shop. So visit rogueshop.com and use code REPORT to get 20% off. I'm sorry, 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever ails you in life, the Rogue Shop has something that has you covered. We appreciate our guy, Richard. He says you guys have been coming through too. He drops a little personalized note in those Rogue Shop orders for you guys as you come through. And last but certainly not least, it's cold outside. So if you're all booed up, maybe visit our friends at tryjoymode.com. Look, man, when it's winter time, it's baby making time. And if you were born in August, your parents got busy in the winter. And if they had Joy Mode, maybe you'd have a sibling or two. So visit tryjoymode.com, use code REPORT to get 20% off plus free shipping. Our friends at Joy Mode spreading joy even though it's not holiday season anymore.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate everybody who's jumped in here. It is coming. It is. Pause. All right. So before we get over before I get over into your comments, we're gonna do. I'm gonna try to do a little rundown every Sunday now.
You did that pause for the culture, right?
Yeah, for the culture, baby. A little Auburn sports news outside of the traditional basketball, football stuff. So I'm going to run through some stuff really quickly about other teams. Then I'm going to get over into the comment section. So I'll start this thing off here talking about Auburn basketball, women's basketball today, taking on number 15 Kentucky at 2 p.m. Auburn women's basketball. Say again.
In 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. Yes. So if you want to check that game out, definitely do that. This team is struggling for a win right now. Haven't gotten an SEC win yet this season, but they've been dealing with some injury issues, and hopefully we'll be getting some players to be able to help on that offensive front very soon. So look out for Auburn women's basketball. Hopefully be able to turn the corner. I don't know how they're going to win this game today. I ain't going to hold you. Kentucky is like, they're really good.
Yeah.
So,
let me just add a quick note. Remember, they started 0-3 in conference play last year.
Did.
And made the NCAA tournament. So in that game that they won was the defending national champion LSU Tigers.
For sure.
So Kentucky is the real deal this year. They killed it in the transfer portal. But could Auburn go on the road? Only thing was that game was at home and this one was on the road. Right. But they played a lot of people tough. They're still a tough out for a lot of folks. And man, Johnny Harris is going to have to pull a rabbit out of our hat here, I think, over the back half of SEC play. But look, man, you can't. They won't hear you through the TV, but I think your spirit will be felt. Please tune into that one if you can.
For sure. Next up, Jacoby Tharp is on the Bowerman watch list for Auburn track and field, doing some good things there for Auburn track and field. He is a guy who they're expecting to be one of the best. He, as a freshman, he did beautiful things last year, and he's one of the guys they're expecting to have big dividends this year. So make sure if you are a track and field person, make sure y'all check out Auburn track and field. Jacoby Tharp there. Next up, the number 7 ranked gymnastic team in the nation. Auburn wins the Lone Star Collegiate Invitational.
Nice.
So there was 5 teams out there in that Lone Star Invitational in San Antonio, and Auburn took the victory there. So y'all make sure y'all check out Auburn gym, minus, of course, the international superstar, but still top 10 ranked in the country. Auburn women's gymnastics out there doing things. Haley Rainey, the right-handed pitcher, and Analia Adams, the utility player for Auburn's softball team, are both on preseason watch list. So the senior right-handed pitcher, Rainey, is on the preseason top 100 watch list, and the freshman coming in, utility player, is on the top 100 freshman watch list this season coming up for Auburn softball. And then Auburn played South Carolina in another sport as well yesterday besides basketball. They split the meet with South Carolina. That was a home meet. The men won and the women fell just short. The women are like top 20 in the country as well for swim and dive. So Auburn's got a lot of great teams out there doing things on a lot of different places. And then preseason ranking number 12 for Auburn women's tennis right now. The preseason rankings came out recently. Auburn women's tennis is now ranked number 12 in that coming into the season. So looking forward to Auburn sports having a really productive year in 2025 with all these great things happening right now on the Plains. Get back over into this situation with your comments. And we'll start off the comment section with, well, I'll just say Ernest Vaughn gave a couple of memberships, or gifted one membership, I should say. Appreciate Ernest for doing that. Miller House jumps in and says, I like what Devin Carter said during his commitment. We gonna make the Plains great again. Definitely gonna talk about that here in just a minute. Chaney is gonna step up. Auburn can do this in Broome's absence, says Brad Browning. Feel like Chaney Johnson's gonna be the guy that steps up. I'm looking forward to seeing what Chaney can do, man.
Yeah, Chaney is so talented. And he does a lot of things that aren't quantifiable always on the stat sheet. But I'm telling you, as they move through this, because this is a tournament team with or without Janai Broom, right? Janai puts you over the top. Janai makes you the number one team in the country. But you don't need to be the number one team in the country to win some of these games that they have. You just need to be top 10 worthy, play like a top 10 team. Play like a top 10 team, and that's why I think Auburn wins more games than they lose over this 5-game stretch that we talked about. And Chaney's going to be a big part of that.
Indeed.
I think it's going to be important, too, for those guys to be right here. Ephesians just took it to just about to say. Go ahead and read it out.
Ephesians 2:8-9 says, really have to have Dylan defend without fouling in this stretch without.
Yeah, he struggles with that. If that was where you were going, Caesar. Sometimes he gets himself in foul trouble, and look, when
sometimes Chaney does it too.
Yeah, it's hard to be a shot blocker and not foul, right? Like when you're going for block a lot of shots, I struggle with, when they jump straight up, and it's almost like there's nothing you can do to avoid the foul sometimes, right? Like, if they touch you and you jumped, you're getting a foul. And I've very rarely seen the refs call that. Because I don't think it's a foul as much as they call it a foul, right?
Yeah.
You're gifting them.
It's the other fouls that I don't like that Dylan gets, right? Like the ones where he's going to box out and he essentially just pushes a guy underneath the basket, or sometimes he'll get
he's fouling like he's defending full court, and he should be running and getting back, like those types of fouls. I'm like, Dylan, what are you doing?
Yeah, because to your point, Mike, because he tries to block so many shots, you're going to get other fouls anyway.
Yeah.
Like, if he can cut 2 or 3 of those out, that he won't be in foul trouble as much. Same thing with Chaney, right? Chaney gets a couple of fouls, like the one where he just runs through Colin Murray Boyles in the last game. It's like, you don't need to do that one, dude. Like,
did Dylan foul out? He had 5 fouls.
He did.
He fouled out in the last game.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Like you in the absence of Janai Broom, everybody's going to get a few more minutes, which means everybody's got to stay out of foul trouble to help you make sure that you've got your rotations and you're able to keep guys fresh in the game. If you're having to play long stretches because you can't sub a dude in because he got 3 fouls in the first half, then you're putting yourself in a situation where everybody's having to do more, and they already are having to shoulder more load because the Janai Broom is not going to be there.
And that's what concerns me about the Georgias and the miss, like those physical teams in the interior. That's what worries me about that, is that one of those guys get in foul trouble, Auburn's in trouble.
I do want to add that in the absence of Janai Broom over the back half of that game, Chad Baker-Mazara was the only other Auburn player that played more than 30 minutes. So I'm sorry, Miles Kelly played 34 minutes in Janai's absence as well too. So like, I wonder if that's what it looks like, those two playing, more of the minutes, keeping Miles Kelly on the court a little bit more. Todd Pettiford only 22 minutes, right? Do we see him creep a little closer to 30 minutes with Janai out? I'd love to see how they're going to balance it.
Yeah, the rotations are going to be interesting because I think you have to figure out how to play a little bit more small ball and say, all right, we're going to concede that we're not going to be as great, on the interior, but we're going to shoot you out of the gym, or we're going to be quicker than you to everything. So I don't know. We'll see how that goes. Another one here from Ephesians 2:8-9 says the Mississippi State team is really good and physical, need a big game defensively from Cardwell and Chaney Johnson. Both have had foul trouble. That's what we were just talking about here.
Yeah.
let's go ahead and pivot here in these last few minutes. Auburn football, new commit 2026, Devin Carter makes his commitment official and has a note that he throws out there for Deuce Knight saying, hey, let's make this happen, man. We're going to bring Auburn back to where they need to be on the plains. Deuce Knight actually responded on social media and said, let's go, bit little bro, something like that on Twitter. So what do you think about still out there doing work here in the recruiting rankings for Auburn football right now?
Yeah, like Devin Carter, the 247 has him as the 29th. I'm sorry, 123rd overall, I believe. So he's the top 150 player. And them Georgia kids, man, remember how hard Tubbs went into Georgia, right? Like, I mean, it felt like half the team came from Georgia back in the day. You know, establishing a good foothold back there is so important. So much rich talent. You know, and we talked about this over, you know, on Locked On UCF as well. When you talk about like top 5 fertile recruiting grounds for college football, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Texas, California. Right? Like, I mean, if name me, is there
Louisiana probably would be up there.
Okay, I'll give Louisiana. They're bordering on top 5 to me, but like I'm telling you, Florida, Georgia, Cali, Texas, easily. And you win Super Bowls with kids from Alabama. You know, out of Mobile. Come on, man. In-state establishing that it's in your backyard. You have to win those kids in your backyard. Stop letting these kids go to Clemson. Right. Stop letting them get out of here, man, and go to these other conferences. It doesn't make any sense. So, Devin Carter, I like his energy. I like the message he had for Deuce. Let's go get it. What they're building, the potential squad that they're building here, you know, I love it. Just I want this coach to have a clear path to playing time for Deuce Knight. You know, we should be able to look forward to the Deuce Knight era of Auburn football. I mean, I was looking forward to the Walker White era of college football, of Auburn football, but we never got there. And I hope that Hugh Freeze has enough time for us to see the Deuce Knight era of Auburn football, because I think it could be something special.
And this is why it's so important to have a kid like a Deuce Knight in each and every one of your classes, because he continues to recruit.
Guys want to come play with classes.
Yeah. He continues to recruit. Like it's the gift that keeps on giving in a sense, because guys are like, oh yeah, I definitely want to catch passes from him.
This guy,
or I definitely want to throw. Like we saw it last year with Cam Coleman. QBs coming in and say, yeah, I definitely want to throw passes to those guys.
Yeah.
And so this is why it's so important for Hugh Freeze to continue to do what they're doing in the recruiting field, because it just makes recruiting a lot easier for some of these guys in future classes, because you already have guys they want to play with.
Remember when LeBron said, I want to go play with my friends, and then everybody freaked out. It was just like, you're a loser. No way, nobody does that. You shouldn't want to play with D Wade and Bosh, right? This is how it is, man. Like, these guys do want to team up. They want to play on All-Star team. I mean, they want to play with guys that they want to have a beer with, that they want to play video games with. I mean, and that's not something new, but for the most part, like, yeah, that camaraderie being built before they hit campus is always a good thing for you. I think as long as you've got a good culture and you've got a plan for these kids and they're bought into what you're doing, I think it's great, man, that these guys are forming that bond and they want to play with each other, because it means something. How many times do we see QBs and wide receivers are roommates in college? We hear that a lot. Who's your roommate? Well, it's the QB. Right? The guy throwing me the passes. I want to be inside his head on the field. And if we are on that same, we spend enough time together and we're on that same wavelength, man, it's really, really dangerous. When a wide receiver knows his quarterback well enough that he's always where he's supposed to, where the QB expects him to be. That chemistry is more than just practices, X's and O's, man. I'm telling you, it's this stuff that we're seeing right here between Deuce Knight and Devin Carter.
Yeah, hopefully it pays dividends. Carter is the 6th commit coming up here for the 2026 class. Auburn currently ranked still in the top 10, I think like number 6 right now, according to 247. Any other thoughts on that? We sound like you were about to say something there, see?
No, it's just I'm curious to see what happens over the next month or so, because you got Junior Day coming up. So I expect to see a few more commitments roll in for Auburn for this class. I think they got catapulted into the top 10 back again for 247. I don't know what On3 has for them, but it's curious to see how Auburn looks in the next few weeks.
Yeah. And lastly, before we get out of here, Auburn has announced the date for A-Day coming up on April the 12th. You will get your first chance to see what it looks like for the aforementioned Deuce Knight out there. Because listen, they ain't got too many quarterbacks, so
yeah, man,
he's gonna have to throw the ball if the weather permits. So
Jackson, Deuce, and Tanner Bailey, right?
That's it.
All we got. So
Jackson Arnold will get his opportunity. Deuce Knight will get his opportunity. I guess Tanner will get to spin it. I have no idea how deep into the thing they're going to go for that one, but you will at least see a lot of those two.
Follow me to fantasy land here for a second. What if Deuce Knight just brings the house down at 8A? What if he just tears it up at 8A? What if he just is throwing darts like Daredevil? Right,
it'll be at least controversial, so people will be like, "I want to see Deuce."
What if he just looks amazing at 8?
He'll have a cult following, and then when the season starts, he'll be number 2 or number 3.
And the minute that Jackson Arnold does anything people don't like, they will be chanting for Deuce Knight from the stand.
Remember that one pass he threw at 8A? I mean, think about this. Ashton Daniels doesn't get here until summer,
right?
Yeah.
And it does. I think if you're Hugh Freeze, it's kind of a good situation for you because you have time now to evaluate it, Deuce, and you don't have this worry that you had with all these commitments to these other guys, right? Peyton and Robbie, Peyton and Hank, and Holden, and like you're not splitting up. It's going to be the division of reps is going to be clear all spring,
right?
You know, and you can run Deuce with the ones a good amount without taking anything away from Jackson Arnold.
Yeah, if he's amazing, yeah. I mean, I think if anything, it gives the fan base a lot more comfort about that room moving forward.
Yeah. I just think in the Walker White interview that he did on Locked On Baylor or Locked On Baylor Bears or whatever they are. Walker said that his family had a conversation with Hugh Freeze where Hugh said if he's not the starter by year 2, he's probably not going to play here. Right? Like I went back and I watched that whole interview or the portion with Walker, right? And a lot of hubbub was made about his decision to leave, but I thought that filled in a key piece for me for why he maybe decided to leave. If that was the conversation that was had on the front end, I mean, all the three of us, we all went back and forth about this, but like that to me says, all right, well, the coach said that on the way in the door. If he's not starting by year 2, he's probably not gonna play here.
Did Coach Free said truthfully before he said that statement?
Undoubtedly, he said truthfully. If you're not gonna play by year 2, then truthfully, I just gotta, I believe with being honest with guys, that's probably how that went down.
So if you didn't, if you're Walker, you're looking at it and you're thinking there's no clear path to me starting next year. Right, like at all. So I get out of here. I wonder, but the reason I brought that up was I wonder if that's the same message that was delivered to Deuce. Like, what are you telling Deuce Knight? Like, what's the message in the Deuce? Year 2, year 3? Like, how long are you? Like, I mean, I don't know. I've got questions about that. I thought that was a very interesting interview. I guess my rebuttal question to Walker White in that instance was, do you feel like you're ready to start year 2? Right? Like based upon what you know about your knowledge of this, not your confidence in yourself, but like, did you feel ready? Like, yeah, if they handed me the ball tomorrow, I could go out there and I could win football games because
that would be my question to myself in that scenario. It's like, yeah, at the beginning, if I'm not ready by year 2, am I ready by year 2? And that goes, I guess, back to how confident do I feel like this team and this coaching staff has prepared me, and how much do I feel like they really have had a plan to say, here is your progression to that place. Because he didn't move up the depth chart at all last year behind Hank Brown, Holden Geriner, it seemed. So, but again, I don't say that that's Walker White's fault, because I don't know what happened in the preparation of Walker White during all of those things. Right. So, yes, it's fair to say that was what our conversation was initially. I understand my place in this pecking order. I don't really have a path to start this year, but it's also fair to say I had something to do with that. And now you'd have to question, how ready is he going to be? Because he's not going to start this year at Baylor, absent of an injury. Right. I don't know. I still have a lot of the same questions, but I agree with you. That definitely does change the perspective of like the decision that was made because of the information that we went into the offseason with.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Any other thoughts before we get out of here? Any other good comments out here y'all want to take a look at?
Our guy here says we can win without Broome, but he will be missed for a short while. Hopefully heal up well. King Broome. Yeah, I do agree that Auburn can win without him. And I think it's important for fans to believe that and to show up to these games and, cheer your face off, man. Auburn versus Tennessee is still a huge game. I know they got blown out by Florida, but they come to Neville and it has to be loud and it has to be hostile for them.
For sure.
So, the ticket prices are still pretty high for that game. It's going to be a showdown, possibly that might decide whether Auburn is a 1 seed or a 2 seed when you look back on it. It's going to be tight. I thought that even though Auburn had one loss, they had the better resume than an undefeated Tennessee. But the AP still had, Tennessee rated over Auburn. And they didn't drop them until they got blown out by Florida. So that head-to-head may matter. And I think that both Tennessee and Auburn are worthy of a 1 seed at full strength.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
There might be 2 or 3 potential 1 seeds in the conference.
Yes, I agree with that as well.
Yeah.
Florida, Bama, there are 2 or 3 potential 1 seeds in this conference.
This conference is on another level, man, in ways I've never seen before. So, yes, that's very possible.
Let's see here. Valencia. I didn't know if all we wanted to talk about this, but it says he's saying he's going to hand Auburn their first loss. Here are my thoughts on this. I'll say my thoughts on it.
I didn't hear that in the interview.
100. There's a clip floating around on social media, and he apparently said what he said was, "I'm looking forward to handing Auburn there," because the guy asked, he's like, your first game of the season is going to be against your former team. He's like, "I'm looking forward to handing Auburn their first loss, whether that be on the field or preparing the team to play in that game."
That sounds more reasonable.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so here's my thing. Is he supposed to say, he could have just not said anything about the win or loss in that game, but I'm not mad at him saying, yeah, we're going to go in there and we're going to win the game. Because you want to win the game. I'm not mad at him for saying that. I mean, I 100% hope that he is able to eat.
I was wrong. Yeah.
Sure. I want him to have a full digestive experience for those.
But that's the context, right? I think you gave us the context, but in isolate, when you hear that he's going to hand Auburn their first loss, you're like, really?
Right.
Okay, so you're going to put the team on your back and just get Auburn up out of here, game 1. You know what I mean? So I think context matters in that. So
it does matter.
Yeah. So again, he did not say it as if he thought he was going to play a big role on the field. He was like, in whatever capacity I can help, I hope that we can hand them this loss, which is why, again, I'm not mad at the statement. I mean,
I will say this. He was also very clear that the quote that was being spread around by Thamel was taken out of context.
Yeah.
It was taken out of context. He was asked a question.
Pete Thamel took something out of context.
He was listed it was so sensational. The way he quoted that, honestly, it was dishonest. It was very dishonest.
He made it clear in the interview. The question was asked of him why he chose Baylor of the teams he could transfer to, and his response was this is the team that showed me this path the best. It had absolutely nothing. And he said he texted Coach Freeze and, Coach Austin. He said he made sure that he let them know, like, I know this might be out here, but that was not what I was saying in that moment.
Yeah, he cleared that up, right? Yeah. Because he's not the type of guy that burns bridges. Yeah. And I know Walker personally. I know his family. I know how they handled themselves. Like, trying to paint him out like he was some kind of petty Betty, to me it wasn't right, man.
I think that's what shocked a lot of people in Auburn, because they didn't have that impression of Walker either, Mike. Yeah, so it was just like, whoa, what's this all about?
Look, at the end of the day, if it's not coming from the War Report, like, just question it. We're not saying it. You question it, and then I'm mostly being serious, guys. We did sit downs with all the quarterbacks.
I'm mostly being serious, guys.
Yeah. Like I mean, we had a relationship with Walker, man. He was not the type of kid that would go out there and just start yapping like that. Like, I mean, it's not anywhere. If you know Walker, he's more likely to say nothing at all. And so, like, look, man, obviously he wanted it to work out here. It didn't work out here, and it's tough, man. This is why y'all do this. Y'all fry the kid for this, and then you complain when these guys don't want to talk to the media. This is why I don't want to talk to the media. You asked the question, and then you painted his words in the most sensational way ever. And like I said, like, what's he supposed to say? Yeah. Well, it's my former school, so we'll let him have this one, and then I'm gonna do good in all the other games. No, man, you want to beat him.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. All right, well, let's get up out of here, man, because I want to watch some women's basketball. Auburn currently winning 6-3, but very early in this game. Mike G, take us out of here. What announcements we have left?
Again, can't say it enough. Want to thank our title sponsor, Golden's Cast Iron. Visit goldencastiron.com/WR. Use code Get Your Weight Up for 15% off your weights, and code TWR for $65 off Kamado Grills. Golden says you guys are buying up the weights. Keep buying them, please. We love Goldens. We want them to stick around, and they'll do that if you guys buy their products. I know the grills are expensive, but they're lifetime products. It's the last grill you'll ever buy. And I think they're working on like a smaller, more compact travel, like tailgate type grill for your smaller tailgate. So Golden's innovating over there. We love them. Show them that you love them by going and visiting our URL and using these codes to buy anything from them. Also, hit that join button. Join as a member. We appreciate our community for doing that. I want to run back through and thank our sponsors, Joy Mode. Visit tryjoymode.com and use code report to get 20% off plus free shipping. Also, visit our friends at Manscaped, manscaped.com, and use code report to get 20% off plus free shipping. If you're in the Auburn area and you're hungry, visit our friends at Los Amigos Restaurant right there, 1220 Fox Run Ave, Suite 200 in Opelika, Alabama. Great members of the community. And if you're in a fine dining mood, our friends at Vintage 2298 Restaurant and Butcher Shop is also serving up something great for you guys. And after all that, when you're ready to chill, rogueshop.com, use code report for 15% off your Rogue Shop order. Pain, sleep, stress, anxiety, whatever's got you going, the Rogue Shop has something for you. And check us out on podcasts, guys. Every single podcast platform, we have got our content in audio only format for you to enjoy on your way to work or at the gym or whatever you're doing. The War Report is there with the Auburn Express, Uptempo, College Loop, and Just a Sec pods. Also, our pregame and postgame stuff, sometimes we put that on pod. So if you missed it, you can grab that in audio only format. We appreciate you guys for supporting us over there as well.
Yes, indeed. Before you guys get out of here, make sure you share the content with somebody and like the video if you can. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll be back at you with more great content later. Get with us on all the social media platforms at The War Report. Until the next time, and as always, War Eagle.
War Eagle.